Adapted from archaic translation by Robert Chalmers. Jataka number 75. Maka Jataka. Parjana, thunder. This story the master told while at Jetavana monastery, about the rain he caused to fall. For in those days, so it is said, there fell no rain in Kosala. The crops withered, and everywhere the ponds, tanks, and lakes dried up. Even the pool of Jetavana monastery by the embattled gateway of Jetavana monastery gave out. And the fish and tortoises buried themselves in the mud. Then came the crows and hawks with their lance-like beaks, and busily picked them out writhing and wriggling, and devoured them. As he noticed how the fishes and the tortoises were being destroyed, the master's heart was moved with compassion, and he exclaimed, "This day must I cause rain to fall." So, when the night grew day, after attending to his bodily needs, he waited till it was the proper hour to go the round in quest of alms. And then, encircled round by an assemblage of the brethren, and perfect with the perfection of a Buddha, he went into Shravasti city for alms. On his way back to the monastery in the afternoon from his round for alms in Shravasti city, he stopped upon the steps leading down to the tank of Jetavana monastery, and thus addressed the elder monk Ananda. "Bring me a bathing dress, Ananda. For I would bathe in the tank of Jetavana monastery." "But surely, sir," replied the elder monk, "the water is all dried up, and only mud is left." "Great is a Buddha's power, Ananda. Go, bring me the bathing dress," said the master. So the elder monk went and brought the bathing dress, which the master wore, using one end to go round his waist, and covering his body up with the other. So clad, he took his stand upon the tank steps, and exclaimed, "I would gladly bathe in the tank of Jetavana monastery." That instant the yellow stone throne of Sakka grew hot beneath him, and he pursued to discover the cause. Realizing what was the matter, he summoned the king of the storm clouds, and said, "The master is standing on the steps of the tank of Jetavana monastery, and wishes to bathe. Make haste and pour down rain in a single torrent over all the kingdom of Kosala." Obedient to Sakka's command, the king of the storm clouds clad himself in one cloud as an undergarment, and another cloud as an outer garment, and chanting the rain song, he darted on eastward. And lo! He appeared in the east as a cloud of the size of a threshing floor, which grew and grew till it was as big as 100, as 1,000, threshing floors. And he thundered and lightened, and bending down his face and mouth deluged all Kosala with torrents of rain. Unbroken was the downpour, quickly filling the tank of Jetavana monastery, and stopping only when the water was level with the topmost step. Then the master bathed in the tank, and coming up out of the water wore his 2 orange-colored cloths and his waist belt, adjusting his Buddha robe around him so as to leave one shoulder bare. In this guise he set on, surrounded by the brethren, and passed into his perfume chamber, fragrant with sweet-smelling flowers. Here on the Buddha seat he sat, and when the brethren had performed the duties, he rose and encouraged the brotherhood from the jeweled steps of his throne, and dismissed them from his presence. Passing now within his own sweet-smelling odorous chamber, he stretched himself, lion-like, upon his right side. At evening, the brethren gathered together in the hall of truth, and lived on the abstinence and loving kindness of the master. When the crops were withering, when the pools were drying up, and the fishes and tortoises were in grievous plight, then did he in his compassion come on as a savior. Putting on a bathing dress, he stood on the steps of the tank of Jetavana monastery, and in a little space made the rain to pour down from the heavens till it seemed like to overwhelm all Kosala with its torrents. And by the time he returned to the monastery, he had freed all alike from their tribulations both of mind and body. So ran their talk when the master came on from his perfume chamber into the hall of truth, and asked what was their theme of conversation. And they told him, "This is not the first time, brethren," said the master, "that the Lord Buddha has made the rain to fall in the hour of general need. He did the like when born into the brute creation, in the days when he was king of the fish. And so saying, he told this story of the past. Once upon a time, in this exactly same kingdom of Kosala and at Shravasti city too, there was a pond where the tank of Jetavana monastery now is, a pond fenced in by a tangle of climbing plants. In that lived the bodhisattva, who had come to life as a fish in those days. And, then as now, there was a drought in the land. The crops withered. Water gave out in tank and pool. And the fishes and tortoises buried themselves in the mud. Likewise, when the fishes and tortoises of this pond had hidden themselves in its mud, the crows and other birds, flocking to the spot, picked him out with their beaks and devoured them. Seeing the fate of his family, and knowing that none but he could save them in their hour of need, the bodhisattva resolved to make a sincere word of goodness, and by its effect to make rain fall from the heavens so as to save his family from certain death. So, parting apart the black mud, he came on, a mighty fish, blackened with mud as a casket of the finest sandal wood which has been smeared with collyrium. Opening his eyes which were as washed rubies, and looking up to the heavens he thus spoke to Parjana, king of Devas, "My heart is heavy within me for my family's sake, my good Parjana. How comes it, I ask, that, when I who am righteous am distressed for my family, you send no rain from heaven? For I, though born where it is customary to prey on one's family, have never from my youth up devoured any fish, even of the size of a grain of rice. Nor have I ever robbed a single living creature of its life. By the truth of this my speech, I call upon you to send rain and relief to my family." With that, he called to Parjana, king of Devas, as a master might call to a servant, in this stanza. Parjana, thunder, baffle, stop, the crow. Breed sorrow's pangs in him. Ease me of suffering. In such wise, as a master might call to a servant, did the bodhisattva call to Parjana, by that causing heavy rains to fall and relieving numbers from the fear of death. And when his life closed, he passed away to fare according to his deeds. So this is not the first time, brethren, said the master, that the Lord Buddha has caused the rain to fall. He did the like in past days, when he was a fish. His lesson ended, he identified the birth by saying, the Buddha's disciples were the fishes of those days, Ananda was Parjana, king of Devas, and I myself the king of the fish. Source: adapted from archaic translation by Robert Chalmers. Jataka number 76. Asamkhya Jataka. The village breeds no fear in me. This story was told by the master while at Jetavana monastery, about a lay brother who lived at Shravasti city. Tradition says that this man, who had entered the paths and was an earnest believer, was once journeying along on some business or other in the company of a leader of a caravan. In the jungle the carts were unyoked and a laagar was constructed. And the good man began to pace up and down at the foot of a certain tree hard by the leader. Now 500 robbers, who had watched their time, had surrounded the spot, armed with bows, clubs, and other weapons, with the object of looting the encampment. Still unceasingly that lay brother paced to and fro. "Surely that must be their sentry," said the robbers when they noticed him. "We will wait till he is asleep and then loot them." So, being unable to surprise the camp, they stopped where they were. Still that lay brother kept pacing to and fro, all through the first watch, all through the middle watch, and all through the last watch of the night. When day dawned, the robbers, who had never had their chance, threw down the stones and clubs which they had brought, and bolted. His business done, that lay brother came back to Shravasti city, and, approaching the master, asked him this question, in guarding themselves, "Sir, do men prove guardians of others?" "Yes, lay brother. In guarding himself a man guards others. In guarding others, he guards himself." "Oh, how well said, sir, is this utterance of the Lord Buddha. When I was journeying with a caravan leader, I resolved to guard myself by pacing to and fro at the foot of a tree, and by so doing I guarded the whole caravan. Said the master, lay brother, in past days too the wise and good guarded others while guarding themselves. And, so saying, at the lay brother's request he told this story of the past. Once upon a time when Brahmadatta was reigning in Benares, the Bodhisattva came to life as a Brahmin. Arriving at years of discretion, he became aware of the evils that spring from lusts, and so gave up the world to live as a hermit in the country round the Himalayas. Need of salt and vinegar having led him to make a pilgrimage for alms through the countryside, he traveled in the course of his wanderings with a merchant's caravan. When the caravan halted at a certain spot in the forest, he paced to and fro at the foot of a tree, hard by the caravan, enjoying the bliss of insight. Now after supper 500 robbers surrounded the laagar to plunder it. But, noticing the ascetic, they halted, saying, "If he sees us, he'll give the alarm. Wait till he drops off to sleep, and then we'll plunder them." But all through the livelong night the ascetic continued to pace up and down. And never a chance did the robbers get. So they threw away their sticks and stones and shouted to the caravan folk. "Hi, there, you of the caravan. If it hadn't been for that ascetic walking about under the tree, we'd have plundered the lot of you. Mind and fate him tomorrow." And so saying, they made off. When the night gave place to light, the people saw the clubs and stones which the robbers had thrown away, and came in fear and trembling to ask the Bodhisattva with respectful salutation whether he had seen the robbers. "Oh, yes, I did, sirs," he replied. "And were you not alarmed or afraid at the sight of so many robbers?" "No," said the Bodhisattva. "The sight of robbers causes what is known as fear only to the rich. As for me, I am penniless. Why should I be afraid? Whether I dwell in village or in forest, I never have any fear or dread." And with that, to teach them the truth, he repeated this stanza. The village breathes no fear in me. No forests me dismay. I've won by love and charity salvation's perfect way. When the Bodhisattva had thus taught the truth in this stanza to the people of the caravan, peace filled their hearts, and they explained him honor and veneration. All his life long he developed the 4 excellences, and then was reborn into the Brahma realm. His lesson ended, the master explained the relation and identified the birth by saying, "The Buddha's followers were the caravan folk of those days, and I the ascetic."